Did you know that some of the best inventions were created by complete accident? Some guy in the late 1800s was trying to create a new type of rubber but ended up creating chewing gum instead. And penicillin only came about because of some mold left in an old petri dish that eventually started to eat away the bacteria around it. So I want you to understand that it's quite possible that video game developers accidentally create something kind of amazing. It's more likely than you think. Glitches are absolutely everywhere. Every game you've played, and even the ones that you haven't, have had a fair heaping of glitches lurking in the code, and it's the inevitability of glitches that make them so fascinating to talk about. You can do all the bug testing that you want, but there will always be that collection of glitches that slip through the cracks and become a feature. Accidental features, of course, but still a component of a game that is never patched out and accepted by players to be something that can be interacted with or used in the game, irrespective of how it came to be. It's when these glitches transcend beyond this, and the devs see the potential behind it, that we strike that priceless well of a glitch so influential that it is recognised by the devs as something that can be moulded into a proper feature and retained for later games in the same franchise. Being creative is a hard thing to do sometimes, so when you have that spark of genius land at your feet by complete random chance, why wouldn't you reuse it? I've heard worse excuses to ignore glitches. I haven't actually got anything else to add, but I just want to show you what I'm dealing with right now in this recording session. Just dogs. How you doing, dogs? What's up? I really don't envy anyone trying to make a new shooter these days. I honestly couldn't tell you how to do it, because as one of the most popular genres out there, we've had all sorts of different styles and perspectives with unique mechanics sprinkled all over the place, to the extent that I don't know what else you could do. That being said, the one feature that I love seeing focused on in a shooter is movement, since shooting a gun is one skill to master, but having to do so while leaping all over the place raises the skill ceiling of your game to the stratosphere. Plus, with unique styles of movement, you can create a fundamentally different shooter experience that is easily separated from the likes of Call of Duty and Halo. Warframe kinda came out of nowhere in 2013, but wasted no time at all in gathering together a group of passionate players who fell in love with both its free-to-play approach and its incredible scope of movement that lets players zip all over the place and leave their opponents looking at some shapeless blur. This is what you need as a backdrop to your exciting new shooter game if you want to catch anyone's attention. So, Warframe must have been designed this way from the start, yeah? You'd think so, wouldn't you? The more you look into Warframe's development history, the more you start to appreciate just how much of a miracle this game was, because its original idea started in the year 2000, where 8 years of development eventually gave rise to Dark Sector, which is a fairly underwhelming, fairly standard third-person shooter, but they'd keep plugging away at it, keep repurposing a few different ideas, and eventually, say 4 or 5 years later, we ended up with Warframe, complete with all the exciting shooty action. But not necessarily all of this crazy movement that just kind of sort of happened. Though, if there's one surefire thing you can count on with lobbies full of players always trying to push the boundaries of what a game is capable of, it'd be that if there's a glitch or an exploit to be found that makes life easier or faster, they will find it eventually. Warframe always emphasised movement, but when some keen players were able to use an exploit in the game's physics engine to increase their momentum to such a ridiculous degree that you leap all over the shop at breakneck speed, well, that's called a bullet jump, my friends, and that's pretty much what this game is all about. This is actually faster, controllable movement than any game has ever done before, which is an indicator that this wasn't quite designed into the game deliberately, but this is where developers' digital extremes come in, because they saw that lots of their players were using this glitch to make the game more fun to play, and so what did they do? They decided that since everyone loved using bullet jumps, that they would go away and look into how they can incorporate this technique into the game in more of an official capacity, and now Warframe is known far and wide because of the bullet jump, and it's the thing you show off to other people to get them to come play the game with you. Hey, look what my character can do. That's fucking amazing. Everyone's out there looking for a way to make their shooter game worth playing, and Digital Extremes has a golden incentive dropped gently into their laps. So you're saying that Lawbreakers needed to be more glitchy? The Legend of Zelda has come a long way since the 1980s, although if Breath of the Wild is anything to show, then some of that is still alive and kicking nowadays. If you think how the original Legend of Zelda plays on the NES compared to what it is nowadays, all those little tweaks and, little shuffling around of ideas has left quite a profound impact on the gaming industry. and only like a few thousand glitches. Honestly though, Zelda is pretty airtight in terms of obstructive glitches that you encounter on a regular basis that might ruin your enjoyment of whatever Zelda game you're knee-deep in at the time. I do remember that Skyward Sword glitch that was corrupting save files so much that Nintendo had to release a patch on the shopping channel, but that's probably the most significant impact a glitch has had on a Zelda game. You know, other than all the techniques used in speedrunning and, oh yeah, how you can use bombs and arrows at the same time in Link's Awakening to create the mythical bomb arrows. Zelda games from the very start have always had this high fantasy setting full of strange creatures and magic, so introducing projectile bombs into the mix is like throwing a king cobra into a kid's birthday party. Kinda changes things a bit. I actually didn't know this was a glitch for the longest time because I assumed that combining bombs and arrows was just a hidden feature that Nintendo could hide in issues of Nintendo Power and have it be incredibly valuable knowledge in a pre-internet age. What actually needs to happen is a bit of ingenuity on the player's half and to combine items together in a way that hasn't really happened in Zelda before, especially because you don't often get a chance to sheath your sword in these things. Link's Awakening was different though, since you could equip bombs on one button and the bow on the other, and pressing both buttons at the same time will cause one of those handy-dandy bomb arrows to erupt out of your face and leave any enemies unfortunate enough to be caught in the firing line looking a lot worse for wear. As it turns out, putting a rocket launcher in a Zelda game is a little excessive, as well as a bit of an accident. It's not recognised as a proper item and the way you use it is far too awkward for Nintendo's usual panache for game design, and considering how little official info there is about bomb arrows, it just doesn't feel intentional. Regardless, Nintendo took this as a sign that more games need grenade arrows apparently, and so eventually brought them back in Twilight Princess, Spirit Tracks, and more recently, Breath of the Wild, where they continue to be this ridiculously overpowered option for dealing with just about anything in the game. And the best sign that Nintendo wanted to embrace this glitch? They kept the bomb arrows for the Switch remake. Projectiles have never looked so explosive. So the keen-eyed among you will be aware that I've made this video before. It wasn't even that long ago, only about 3 years or so, but the reason why I'm here again is almost entirely rooted in just how many glitches have transformed into something a lot more useful later down the line, and I wanted to talk about some of the glitches that didn't quite make it into that original video. Tackling this topic in 2021 has its advantages, namely, I get to talk about Super Smash Bros. Melee and how one of its most important mechanics that is used quite literally all the time in competitive play started life as a physics exploit, which is just a fancy way of saying that the physics engine glitches out when a character air dodges diagonally into the ground and slides sideways, and baby, we've got Wavedashing! And a glitch that launched a whole competitive scene. Quite simply, Super Smash Bros. Melee wouldn't be the same without Wavedashing as the quintessential movement option that sets up so many possibilities for approaching your opponents, since you can use any ground attack while sliding their way. It's a weird sight when you slow it down and watch the physics engine struggle to process what's happening, but its uses are so incredibly valuable for Melee's competitive scene that this accidental mechanic has more use than a bunch of other more deliberate features. The only question that I keep running around my brain is whether or not it became a feature in later games, which is basically a no, since Brawl and Smash 4 reworked how directional air dodges work and basically made Wavedashing impossible, with Masahiro Sakurai saying that he didn't like that there was a huge gap between what beginners and seasoned pros were capable of. Well, clearly he wasn't that concerned, because directional air dodges came back in Smash Bros. Ultimate, a game that came out after that original video I made, and now all these new characters can wave dash to their heart's content, and I can take this as a sign that Nintendo sees this glitchy exploit as a feature for a future game. We got there eventually, guys. I don't think there's a character out there with a moveset as well defined and as recognizable as Mario. Moving is kind of his whole deal. He'd like to be lost and very confused if he had to sit there and do nothing, but when you think about it, his moveset has evolved over the years and developed into something entirely new and transformative. I suppose that was always necessary, since 3D environments are significantly more complex than their 2D equivalents, and you're going to need some fancy new techniques if you're going to scale these huge structures. The wall jump is comfortably one of Mario's most useful abilities, with so many applications in 3D space and a handy tool for saving your life in some of the more recent 2D games. I say more recent because wall jumping only officially came to be in two-dimensional games in New Super Mario Bros. In 2006, and that's a lot of Mario without wall jumping. Or at least it would be if Super Mario Bros. Way back in 1985 hadn't accidentally stumbled across a movement option that would be a mainstay for decades. It's just a case of throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks.
The number of useful glitches in Super Mario Bros. Is surprisingly large, and considering what the speedrunners are doing to the 80% record roughly around about now, any super fast run of this game will show you just how many eccentricities there are in the game's engine and how Mario interacts with obstacles. I mean, it was the first Mario game of its type. We should be glad that they got as much right as they did.
It's hardly like Super Mario Bros. Is a horrifically glitchy experience that shows its considerable age as often as possible, but you can make certain allowances for everything not quite being as refined as it could be. Not that it matters much, since if this game was flawless, we wouldn't have the wall jump, which may have officially made its debut in Super Mario 64, but has been present as a glitch since 1985 and has actually been carried forward into Mario 3 and Mario World 2. Though it's definitely a glitch and a quirk of early engines where Mario can land on the top corner of a block and push off with a frame-perfect input, and given the pre-established rules of how Mario moves through a level and can jump off horizontal objects and definitely not vertical ones, it's a bit surprising that Nintendo recognised this glitch enough to implement it properly in future games. Or perhaps Nintendo didn't really know or care about the glitch and just created the wall jump as a way of dealing with this large 3D structure? I don't know, but I do know that 3D Mario games would be a lot more awkward to play without the wall jump, so good job regardless. Try to make more mistakes in the future. I guess if this video has done one thing, it'll be that it's stretched the definition of what feature means, and while that's definitely a word that can mean a lot of different things, the ways in which glitches can manifest in useful ways are suitably widespread. I suppose the only question that remains is what would be the best thing for glitches to accidentally create for you? And considering we've previously talked about crucial mechanics that would go on to be mainstays within their franchises, it'd have to be something even more important somehow. Yeah, that's easy. How about a glitch that became one of the most recognizable icons in all of gaming, and a feature whose absence would remove most of the charm from its game? I mean, how else would you describe creepers from Minecraft? I don't know if you've played some Minecraft before, but they're pretty important. To the extent that they're the most recognizable enemy, or just character, in this game, and even a large part of Minecraft's logo from 2011 onwards. Something so synonymous with Minecraft that it's impossible to separate one from the other. So it's incredibly fortuitous that creepers only exist in the first place because of an error that the devs encountered while coding. Since when Minecraft was in its absolute infancy, all of these objects and environments were being written with code rather than modeled separately. The aim was to create a pig, but the dev mixed up the height and width values as well as rotating the pig so that it looks up, and for some reason never stops looking at the player. And just like that, we've got the best thing that Minecraft has ever contributed to the world. Slap some green paint on it and one day make it explode, and you've got a design so unique with a purpose so specifically cruel that players will always remember their first devastating creeper explosion that destroys their home. And to think that this could have been an ordinary pig and Minecraft would have been without its signature enemy, left to find some values in skeletons and zombies bashing down your door, but with nothing to blast through, maybe Minecraft wouldn't be the sensation that it is today. Crazy how something so destructive helped to create something so important. That's a pretty happy accident.
This is RabbidLuigi, and I do wonder what kind of Minecraft we would have ended up with if the creeper ended up not existing and became the horizontal pig that it was destined to be. Because, like, Minecraft isn't useless without the creeper. There's still the crafting and survival mechanic to it, but there is a surreal uniqueness to the creeper whose sole purpose in life is to sneak up behind you and blow you and your creations to kingdom come. It's like taking the scary monster out of a horror game. Like, you've still got all the ambience and the creepy atmosphere, but none of the sizzle.
Hi, just want to give a quick shout out to some of my top supporters on Patreon. We have Ramon Alberto, Jerome Kiryu, Fusion Warrior, Sarah Malion, Christopher Robinson, Joe Creamer, Scott Riker, Frank Guillong, I think, I'm so sorry, The Green Scorpion, Devon Hutt, and Ferretto. Thank you all for supporting what I do on YouTube, and if you want to join them, you can go to patreon.com/RabbidLuigi, where I post updates and behind the scenes stuff, and we generally have a really good time. Also, what topic would you like to see me cover next? Leave your suggestion in a comment on this video, because I'll be taking the best ideas and making a poll on my community tab, which you can then vote on to decide what the next video is about. I'll be announcing the winner of the poll over on my Twitter, so make sure you follow me so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.